And we're live. And we're live because it is Remembrance Sunday. Remember Remembrance Sunday, when on the 11th day at the 11th hour, at 11 minutes past 11 and 11 seconds, they all stopped fighting and had a football match. And the Germans won on penalties or something like that. And because of that, all these years later, we wear a poppy on Remembrance Sunday, and you kind of have to wear one. You are expected to wear it. Anyone in the public eye who doesn't wear a poppy from about the 1st of October right through till the 11th of November is very much scrutinized and criticized and seen as rather questionable. And a lot of people like to spread rumors that Muslims hate the poppy. I know some do. I know there was a man who was fined, I think it was £50 he was fined in the end for burning the poppy. And some people think that that is the general consensus of the British Muslim population. But of course, many thousands of Muslims fought for the Allied forces in the First World War and the Second World War, and they will tell you it is their poppy also. But who does the poppy belong to? Who should wear it? Who should not? It is strange that we pressure people into wearing something in remembrance of a conflict that was against the Nazis, who also pressured people into wearing certain things and pinning certain emblems onto their clothing. And it does bother me that the poppy is always affixed with a pin. You put your pound in the tin, or however much you want to donate for your voluntary donation, and they give you a loose pin to attach it with. Not a safety pin, but a nice loose pin that could jag you at any moment. That's one thing that puts me off wearing it. But I suppose if the servicemen were ready to risk being shot dead, risking being pricked with a pin is not a lot to ask. But I do think it is unfair that we pressure people to wear the poppy, especially if we look at what that poppy is actually meant to signify. And as I understand it, it is in remembrance of the British servicemen and women who fell in all wars that Britain has been involved in since the First World War, which ended on Armistice Day at 11 o'clock at the 11th hour on the 11th of the 11th. But what if you're uncomfortable with some of the wars that have been fought since then? If the poppy was just about the Second World War and standing up to Nazism, I would happily wear it. And I think most people would. But unfortunately, there have been several armed conflicts since then that the United Kingdom has been involved in that I would be uncomfortable giving my support to. For example, the Falklands and the bombing of the Belgrano. For example, many of the NATO interventions. For example, the Iraq War. For example, what happened in the north of Ireland, where civilians were shot down at the hands of British soldiers. And some people are very partisan about this, and they will back any war that their country is involved with, rightly or wrongly. Good side, bad side. And the politicians are aware of this. And this is why Margaret Thatcher went to war in the Falklands. She knew that a damn good war would be good for ratings, would be good for morale, would save her job as Prime Minister, because the country gets behind its leader at the time of war. Do you think the Falklands, down at the bottom end of Argentina in the southern hemisphere, should be anything to do with Great Britain? You've only got to look at the map. But she knew that going to war would unite the country. And in 2003, when 1 million people took to the streets to try to prevent the catastrophe that the Iraq War turned out to be, there were people, I remember, among my group of friends, who just dismissively said, yeah, we back our boys. You've got to support your country, without even thinking about the rights and wrongs and the morality of the war. I believe there is such a thing as a just war. I'm not some kind of pacifist that says every war is wrong. But I think that one was. And because the poppy is in remembrance of all wars, including that one, I find it difficult to wear the red poppy for that reason. Because there is, of course, the white poppy. You don't see them so much anymore, but the white poppy was meant to be an emblem of pacifism that would recall and remember the deaths on all sides from all wars. And we mustn't forget that there were casualties on all sides. There were women and children killed on all sides. You're not some kind of traitor if you choose to wear a white poppy to remember all victims. And I think some people, some patriotic, on the verge of nationalistic individuals would scoff at wearing a white poppy as opposed to a red one. But the bottom line to me is we won the war, whoever that means. The people that won the war won it so that people could wear what they want. So you would have the right to wear what you want and say what you want and vote for who you want and not be restricted and not live in, well, a racist authoritarian state. That's what it would have been. That's what the cliche is. Oh, if the other side had won, I'd be talking to you in German. Well, that was not the case, because the Allies won the war, and it's been however long it's been now. The war, Second World War, ended in 1945, so we're going 74 years. Jason is saying, I don't support the Remembrance Day. Tell me why, Jason. Why don't you support it? Like me, do you feel uncomfortable with the meaning of the poppy and being forced to wear it, or feeling social pressure to wear it? I mean, by all means, remember your war dead. But when you see the hypocrites in Parliament lining up to remember, and they've all got their poppies on, and the bigger the better. It's like the prouder you are, the bigger poppy you have to wear. and the more solemn they look. But these are not people that would be willing to go and fight for their country or for the rights of smaller nations, as we were told in the First World War. These are people that would send your son to the battlefield, not their own. But we got a caller on line 1. Good morning.
Thanks, my brother.
Is this Mac?
No, this is Annabelle.
Annabelle, welcome back. Good morning.
Yeah, I'm back. I heard you live, and I was like,
Good
man,
man.
I totally disagree with what you're saying, 100%. I think you are programmed, but I'll tell you the reason why I think that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't agree with the Remembrance Day, because I do not agree the fact that we should be celebrating mass murder of human beings as something that we should be grateful, or we should be happy, or we should celebrate it. Because in essence, what you're doing is you're celebrating the mass death of human beings, as a sacrifice, in my opinion, my honest and humble opinion. I mean, I don't want to offend you, but can you see where I'm coming from?
Yes, absolutely.
I totally disagree with the whole matter.
Okay, so I take you wouldn't wear a poppy?
100% no. I feel like they're just trying to force us to wear it. Do you know what I mean? To celebrate something that, if you think about it, it's not right. We should not be remembering it, because it's a bad thing. It's a sad event, and it's something that could have been avoidable. War is just what war is in essence. It's a sacrifice of human beings, because we as human beings, we have the opportunity to communicate. We claim to be a civilized society. We claim to be so righteous, and we claim to be so good and trying to do so much good in the world. And yet we go around and killing and bombing people all over the world. We're the biggest suppliers of weapons in the world. You've got America and the UK. We all know about this fact.
But how can we commemorate the acts of war then and these atrocities? What should we do? Should there be an event?
I think we should be talking about it in a responsible manner and in a precise manner, that we should not be condoning this act. We should not be celebrating it, and we should be really talking in total opposition of weapons, of wars, of selling of weapons, like they're doing, for example, in Yemen, where there's a massive genocide going there, and the Americans and the British keep supplying them weapons. We need to stop living in this hypocritical society.
And those weapons are sold around the table in hotels in London, I'm ashamed to say.
Exactly. And not only that, it's like there's a massive black market going on, which people don't talk about, which is, for example, the selling of weapons. The people in power, they're also selling drugs on massive scale. They're also involved in pedophilia, in prostitution. You know, all of these sort of subjects is part of the black market, which they're doing this every day, and they're spending a lot of money and a lot of wicked, evil stuff, which no one talks about.
Someone has just said in the comments, I thought people wear poppies to support British Army who are fighting Muslims in Afghanistan. I didn't know it was for World War One. Well, it's for all wars.
That's a lie. That's part of the program, which is called Divide and Conquer.
But it's funny that the poppy in Afghanistan is actually used to make heroin, and that might be a reason why we actually went to war.
That is exactly one of the reasons why they went to war. Because do you know that most of the heroin that comes into the West comes from Afghanistan? Since the USA have gone into America, guess what? The heroin production has gone up more than 100%. The actual Taliban used to ban heroin production. They minimized it. They kept it at bay. But since America has gone into there, the heroin production has gone up. Why do you think that?
It's no coincidence.
Exactly, man. So what I'm trying to say, we need to open up our eyes. We need to stop being brainwashed by the media, which now they want to go after the Muslims because it's just another part of the agenda of divide and conquer. While we fight amongst each other, they're going to Muslim countries and bombing innocent people. So you see, you're being played and you don't even know it.
Yeah, well, these are the reasons that I don't wear a poppy anymore. I must admit, I've worn it in the past, but I don't feel comfortable wearing it now because I see the wars that our country is waging are not just wars anymore. I would agree with World War II. I think it was justified, but not Iraq, not Libya, not Afghanistan.
I believe in self-defense. So if someone comes into your country and they want to kill you or your family, then you have the right to defend yourself. But do not go abroad into other nations that's never done you anything and go and bomb them and kill them for whatever reason you use. There is no justifiable reason for killing innocent people. Full stop.
I agree 100%. Hannibal, I appreciate your call.
This is why I think it's really important. I want your listeners to think about this because we need to wake up. Being fooled for so long. I'll give you a good example. Like, look at how expensive London is. And do you know what the population of London is? 5 million, 6 million, something like that? No.
More?
9.5 million.
But that's a lot.
Now, you think about it. 9.5 million people. I was talking about this today with my friend. And I said, think about it. 9.5 million people that need gas, that need electric, that need food. And we are totally at mercy of these corporations, the shops out there that are run by the same system that wants us dead, that wants to destroy us. And we've got no land, we've got no means really except to go to them to get our food, to get our gas and electric. And look how expensive it is, and look how hard it is, look how rents, how expensive they are. You think about how much they're making millions of pounds from the supermarkets every week. Do you know what I mean? They're making so much money because there's nowhere else to go to get your food. You have to go to these corporations or you'll starve.
That's right.
So what I'm saying to you is like we're being played. We're being conned, we're being misused, and we're being abused in every single way. This is why I think religion is important, you know what I mean?
Okay, you think religion can save us from that?
No, I think we can use religion as a way to unite us. Even though what has been happening over the years is religion is being used as a way to divide us.
Yeah, definitely.
But we can change that around because religion is a good thing. It's a way for us to be more consciously aware of each other, of our environment, of human beings, animals, etc. So we can actually make a better world and we can wake up from this trance that we've been going on for thousands of years of where we keep getting treated like bugs and we getting abused by the systems, by the governments of the world. We need to be members of a new race. What I mean about that, we cannot be allegiant to a flag no more. We have to be allegiant to the human family of the world.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Absolutely. I mean, every time people unite around something, the imperial powers have always tried to divide them along other lines. When the Ottoman Empire was united under the banner of Islam, the British came and fostered Arab nationalism, and Lawrence of Arabia turned the Arabs against the Turks. Then when Arab nationalism...
And I was going to say, just before you carry on that, this is really important to get this message out there, is that the British were the ones that went around for places like the Middle East, carving it up and creating all these countries. They were created under the British rule.
Yeah.
Places like Kuwait, Iraq, all of them places, Saudi Arabia, all of these places were created by the British. So they're directly influencing those places. They're keeping those people also oppressed in those countries by using the rulers to pay them out and keep them oppressing the people, keep the people down, you know what I mean? So
that's right.
We need to wake up because the whole world is under this. And what it is these people that are in control. They come from a Nephilim bloodline.
Now we're talking.
So they're not human. They're coming from Nephilims. From up the skies, and it's been going on for a long time. So the elite of the world, they don't care about race. It's about bloodline.
Okay.
It's about family. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you're part of the bloodline, then you're with the program. You're with the agenda.
Interesting.
And they're not humans. This is why they can do so much abuse and genocide and murder throughout history. It's because these people, there's still no way towards us. They see us as worms. You know what I mean? As bugs.
These people of a Nephilim lineage, as you call it, are they aware of who they are? Or is it subconscious?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are, because it's like entities that have possessed their bodies. They're like entities that keep coming back into this planet.
But there are some people doing their work, I would say, unwittingly.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Some people probably are not aware of it. But, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I feel like we all have choices to make. This is what makes us free in a way that we can make choices. And we need to start making different choices. We need to start talking against this sort of subjects, which they don't want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, my phone number got blocked the other day. That's why we're on a new number now. So I don't know if someone's trying to...
You see?
Take us off there, but we are continuing on. Hannibal, I appreciate you getting in touch, my friend.
I really appreciate what you're talking about, and I hope people stop celebrating all these mass murders and the wars. As I said to you guys, if someone comes into your land trying to attack and kill you, fair enough. You have the right to defend yourself, your family, but don't go into foreign lands that have never done you nothing, bombing the hell out of them for whatever reason, whatever lies you want to tell on them, like they done in Iraq, in Afghanistan. For example, the September 11 was the false flag attack, was an attack created by the secret services, by the government, in order for them to go into the Middle East areas to kill and bomb innocent people. Okay?
They said they needed a new Pearl Harbor, and what next? They got one.
Exactly. That's my point.
Hannibal, thank you very much for that. We'll do it again soon.
All right, I'm gonna come off. I'm keeping listening.
No, thank you. Yeah, stay tuned, and we'll catch up.
Keep up the woodwork, and I hope you'll have more interesting subjects that are gonna stimulate people's heads. But talk about these things that I've talked about.
You've touched upon it, and we'll keep it going. Thank you.
Yeah, please do. Even in your coming episodes,
we'll do.
I'm gonna get Speaker's Corner tomorrow as well.
Okay, you have a good time up there.
It'll be good to see you, and keep up and talk about these things that I've talked about, please.
I will, brother. Thank you.
All right. Take care, mate, and I'll be locked in.
Nice one. Bye. Nice one. Thank you. That's Hannibal there, a loyal contributor to the channel, and he touched upon some very deep topics there, and we will go deep into them. He's talking about the Nephilim, or the Archons, as they're also known, and some people equate those terms with jinn, as mentioned in the Quran. Whoever these creatures, entities, beings are, I think the evidence of them is in what's happened in the world, and there are dark forces pushing war upon us, pushing us again and again into these foreign interventions that we shouldn't be involved in. And a topic that I touched upon there was about Arab nationalism being fostered in the First World War because the Ottoman Turks had sided with the Germans during the First World War. The British wanted to turn the Arabs who were living under the Turks, under Turkish rule, Ottoman rule. They wanted to turn the Arabs against the Turks, and they successfully did. And so was born Arab nationalism, originally a tool of the imperial powers. But when the Arabs did unite under the banner of Arabism, be they Christian or Muslim, and Christians such as Mishal Aflaq, the founder of the Ba'ath Party in Iraq and Syria, or Muslims such as Saddam Hussein, the leader of the party after him, and the president of Iraq, or Tariq Aziz, his second in command, a Chaldean Christian. When these communities were united under Arab nationalism, the British imperial powers decided they didn't like Arab nationalism anymore. And Bashar al-Assad, next door in Syria, from another strain of the Hizb al-Ba'ath, the Ba'ath Party that split off, a secular Arab nationalist, but they don't like Arab nationalists anymore. And now you've got Islamist factions and Islamist governments taking power in places that had been Arab nationalist for a time, such as Libya, where Muammar Gaddafi, who drifted from being an Arab nationalist to being a still secular pan-Africanist, the rebels in Benghazi and other places that were funded and trained and armed in order to oust him would have been of an Islamist persuasion. So it swings left and right. The imperial powers helped Arab nationalists overturn the Islamist or Muslim Ottoman Turks. The imperial powers helped the Mujahideen in Afghanistan topple a secular communist sympathizing regime. They helped jihadists in Syria who were resisting the secular Arab nationalist in Bashar al-Assad. So it doesn't matter whether you're a communist, for example, the MKO, who are hiding in Iraq, having been expelled from Iran. They are some kind of Marxist ideology, but because they are against the Islamic Revolution's ideology, then they are our friends. Our enemy's enemy is our friend. So it's not that the imperial powers are against Muslims. They are very fond of some Muslims, of the right type of Muslim. But it's very easy to reduce everything to its most simplistic. But it's always a little bit more complicated than that. But the bottom line is, if you are willing to fight against our enemy, then you are our friend. And the other point that Hannibal was making about not commemorating the atrocities, I don't know how we can deal with the loss and the millions killed in all these wars. How do we commemorate it? How do we move on? If not the poppy, then what? What can we have? A white poppy? Everything will get politicized, and the longer ago these wars are, the more removed we are from them. There is now no one left who fought in the First World War, and I always regret not taking the time to seek out and meet a veteran from the First World War, someone who fought in the trenches. I think Harry Patch was the final veteran of the First World War to pass away. And apparently a lot of these men who fought would not want to talk about their experiences in the First World War. They were so traumatized by what they'd seen and what had happened. There was almost a silence there. And this lasted about a generation. And later they might be more inclined to tell their grandchildren rather than their children about what they'd seen in the war. And I alluded to it in the beginning about this Christmas Day truce that kind of became legendary. There were stories that on Christmas Day, Allies and German soldiers came together and exchanged gifts and sang Christmas carols and had that day's peace. And it just makes you think, if they could do that for one day, why not just call the whole thing off? Because the First World War, from what I understand, was a needless family feud, and millions of poor people fought to the death and killed each other over a family feud somewhere in Europe. The Second World War, again, I'm not a historian. From what I understand, that may have been a necessary intervention, but as we said earlier, it comes down to self-defense, and this is what I think all the holy writings teach. Self-defense. You can interpret it different ways. Look, some people will take their book and say, yeah, this means that I have to go and live in Palestine and kick someone out of their house who's already been living there, or this means I need to kill people on London Bridge. But I think if you really look at the essence of all religions, it's treat others as you would want to be treated. And in terms of conflict, that means defend yourself, but not beyond preserving your own life. And if they stop, you stop. So we'll all be stopping in a few hours for a 2-minute silence up and down the country at the cenotaph. Heads will be bowed. And the politicians that profit from war will be bowing their head the lowest and wearing the poppy that's the biggest and looking the solemnest. When really, these are the people pushing for the next war, for World War III. Someone mentioned it in the comments. I lost track of comments, but let's go back. Leaf said, maybe stuff happened in World War I that was not recorded, and that could change everything. I don't trust anything they say about World War I or World War II and the coming World War III or World War IV. Yeah, I hope not. And Avzad said, the Muslims in Afghanistan don't have an issue with British people. Their issue is with the invaders like the British Army and the USA and NATO, etc. They have no issue with civilians and the governments. And Jen Wallace, good morning. They're saying religion was created to divide. We need to unite under humanity. Yeah, that would be a good way to unite. S. Jarai is saying, do you agree with poppy burning? Definitely not. Absolutely not. And I think that's a very offensive thing to do. And it's me, so it is commenting, don't burn poppies in the north of Ireland. People have respect for it, and it would be a hate crime. Annabel Astrill, who was on the phone, is saying we need to talk about and condemn those acts and make sure no wars happen anymore. And Fishhammer is saying, instead of having a poppy, they should put a damn plastic bag over their head in shame for invading my country. And Fishhammer is also saying 2 minutes silence, they should stay silent for a month. Yeah, the people that like to talk about war the most, maybe they should stay silent. As we brought up Ireland, there is a footballer who plays for Stoke called James McLean, who refuses to wear a poppy, and he's from the north of Ireland. He's from Derry City. And you could understand if the poppy is to represent all fallen in all wars that the British troops have been involved in, you could understand why someone like James McLean wouldn't want to wear a poppy, as the Parachute Regiment in 1972 shot dead 13 civilians at a civil rights march. And some people, being yet again very partisan about it, will defend their side no matter what. And you have people who say, I stand with Soldier F. This is the anonymous name given to hide the identity of one of the soldiers responsible that day. I mean, the buck has been passed, and in reality, it will be a commander that gave the order to fire that day. And the good thing about Britain, and I'm the first to criticise Britain and British foreign policy, but the good thing about the British, one of the good things about this state is that we will admit when we have made a mistake. The Metropolitan Police, it might take a long time, it might take far too long, but I'm trying to see the glass half full. And the Metropolitan Police admitted that they were institutionally racist. Was it 20 years too late? Yes. Did it bring back Stephen Lawrence? No. But they admitted that they had a problem. And the British Paratroop Regiment, I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but they made a mistake, and that's using far too gentle language. They got it wrong on Bloody Sunday in 1972. That is why an investigation has been going on. I know it's coming up to 50 years later, but if the British Army can investigate themselves and police themselves for a mistake on their part, why do you need to stand there and say, yeah, I stand with Soldier F, even though I don't know who he is, because no one is, and he's a man in his 70s now, but he may have been in part responsible for the death of 13 civilians. Why can't you say, yeah, you know what, we got it wrong, and that the good thing about this country is we do investigate it when we're wrong. The good thing about this country is we don't force people to wear something, unlike the Nazis, who forced Jewish people to wear a yellow star to identify them. In this country, we're better than that. In this country, we don't force you to wear a poppy if you would feel uncomfortable wearing it. But every year in the press, James McLean gets ridiculed for feeling uncomfortable to wear a poppy. And Muslims are pressured into feeling, I think, more so that they have to be seen to approve of the poppy, even though many people from many broad spectrums of opinion and religion or no religion, don't feel that it's something for them. So I think British values should reflect the fact that we don't pressure people to wear things. It's Miso is saying, if IRA go free for murders and get into government, Soldier F should be kept free. Well, I disagree. It's Miso it is, because the IRA were only active because of a failure of government. The IRA were not state actors. They were paramilitaries that were operational because there was a conflict and a civil war, because a statelet that had been created and gerrymandered via partition was not working. And I believe had there been no partition, there would have been no Troubles, there would have been no provisional IRA, there would have been no bloody Sunday. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. This is all ifs and buts. But I think the fact that as a result of the Good Friday Agreement, IRA murderers, IRA killers, UVF killers, LVF killers are roaming the streets or serving in government, that's because there was the Good Friday Agreement and people came together and acknowledged the uniqueness of the situation. These are not state actors. The state actors must police themselves. And the British state must police its own servicemen and not just say, oh, well, it was a war on, and if you let the IRA go free, then Soldier F should go free. It's not like for like. And it was the failure of the British state and the Free State. I must be critical of the Free State also, as in what became the Republic of Ireland. And no Kingsmill, you're mentioning the Kingsmill massacre, another atrocity. I would like to discuss that maybe on another night, but the Kingsmill is one of the very harrowing stories of what went on in the Troubles. But this is where we've got to tread carefully now. And tonight, I've sort of acknowledged the fact that I don't wear a poppy. Someone in the question said, do I agree with poppy burning? I really hope I don't come across as the type of person that would agree with poppy burning. I want to live in a society where people are free to wear the poppy if they want to, free to wear the Easter lily if they want to, which is an Irish Republican emblem commemorating 1916, free to wear their orange sash if they want to, free to wear the burqa if they want to, even though I don't agree with it, even though I don't think it's a good thing to cover your face in public, even though I don't think the Muslim religion requires you to do that. Even though I feel uncomfortable about these things, the price of living in a free society is that we should accept these things. And Annabelle is saying that he doesn't agree with poppy burning either. Yeah, nor do I. And someone brought it up once on a different phone-in when we were talking about the people that, for a joke, burnt an effigy of Grenfell Tower, quite rather disgustingly and distastefully. And you can't imagine anyone would want to laugh about the Grenfell Tower tragedy. And the caller said, oh, if that was a Muslim making fun of 9/11, for example, they would have been sent to jail straight away. And I did make the point, well, hang on a minute, what about the Muslims who burnt the poppies in the faces of people that would find that very offensive? What was their punishment? They didn't go to prison. I believe it was actually just a hefty fine, something in the region of £50, probably for littering. And Jen Wallace is saying, explain the poppy thing real quick for the American, please. So over here, Jen, in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, we wear a poppy around the 11th of November, which commemorates the day that the First World War ended. And since that time, it's been going on since then. Since then, the poppy has been a symbol of remembrance, which is the little red flower. And people said that because the fields where the soldiers fell in Flanders, in Belgium and other places, after the war had finished, these poppies grew up, and they were like red, representing the blood of the fallen. So we wear it as... 1 second, I'm laughing. We wear it as a symbol of remembrance, but as I said, it's become very politicized because the British Legion, who manufacture these poppies and sell them, use them to commemorate the fallen in all wars, not just the First World War and the Second World War, all wars, including the conflict in the north of Ireland and the Falklands and Iraq, Afghanistan, many of the other wars that we don't agree with. And it's me, so it is said, you almost said Northern Ireland, which is funny because he's picking up on the fact that I like to call it the north of Ireland, or the 6 counties, or what else could I call it? I'm happy to refer to Ulster, but of course Ulster consists of 9 counties and not 6. Jen Wallace is saying, okay, thank you. We have Veterans Day on the 11th of the 11th. Yeah, it's the same day. It was the 11th of November when the First World War came to an end, I believe. But I'm surprised that the poppy is... it shows you how British-centric I am. Of course, it wouldn't be in other countries. The war it is fading into distant memory. As I said, I can remember hoping one day to meet a veteran from the First World War. I've missed that chance, and I might miss the chance for the Second World War. It's 74 years now since the Second World War ended. Annabelle Rustrill saying poppy contributes to war. I have heard that some of the large companies that benefit from war do actually fund or receive funds from the poppy. It's me, so it's saying people aren't joining the army as much. Yeah, and we're not conscripting people to join the army anymore. Thank God we don't have military service in this country. Jen Wallace is saying, here they hand out little flags, so our flag would be the equivalent of the poppy. Okay, yeah, so that's sort of quite patriotic, quite nationalistic, and of course the Americans joined the war late, apparently. They were late on the scene, but I'm sure the Allies were very grateful to have them. And of course, the Soviet Union played such a huge role and gave so many more lives than any of the other nations involved in the conflict, 20 million dead. But every country sort of overestimates the role that their own country has played in the war. But people overestimate lots of things. I was reading yesterday that they took a survey, this is UK related, but they took a survey and asked people, what percentage of Labour politicians do you think have been accused of anti-Semitism, hatred against Jewish people? And the average estimate among the British public was 35%. On average, people thought that 35%, over a third of the Labour Party MPs had been accused of anti-Semitism. And the actual figure was less than 1%. So that's how skewed a figure could be when you're constantly told one thing when the reality is something else. And I'm sure that every country overestimates their role in the war. And we won the war. Look, I know Great Britain gave many souls to the war effort, and perhaps we should remember those. And every town and village up and down the country has the names of local people that passed away. But you've got to see the bigger picture and think about the thousands in the Commonwealth, the thousands in the Soviet Union that gave their lives fighting against the same tyranny. And I'll never forget what my friend, who has sadly passed away now, father of a good friend of mine, who was from Jordan, and he fought, or he served in the British Army, because Jordan sent, being a British protectorate and part of the British Mandate, part of the Commonwealth, sent a lot of army officers to Sandhurst, down in Surrey, and he proudly showed me his military photograph when they're all lined up, all the soldiers from whichever regiment, and he was stood near the back, sort of in the middle, and along his row were quite a few black faces as well, soldiers from Africa, other parts of the Commonwealth. And I sort of jokingly said, "Oh, they put all the black and brown guys at the back." And he said, "Yes, they do. When they take the photo, they put us at the back. But when they go to war, they send us to the front." And that's always been the way. The front line will always be disproportionately filled with the soldiers, with the troops from the parts of the Commonwealth and the poor parts of the UK. The upper class officer will be right at the back shouting the orders. The poor, the kid who had nowhere else to go, who had no job, who had to lie about his age to get into the army, thinking that it would put some bread on the table. These will be the people on the front line. And that is how history has always been, the poor being exploited. And it's me, so it is saying 36 Division UVF. Yes, these were the soldiers that fought at the Battle of the Somme. And it's me, so is mentioning it. Yes, this is the division from Ulster, and these soldiers would have been from a cross-section of society, would have been Catholic and Protestant, and they would have been serving in the British Army, and many of them, when they got home, will have felt betrayed by the British. Whether you were optimistic about home rule and Ireland having some level of governance, and there was never conscription in any part of Ireland, by the way, as far as I know. In the United Kingdom, in Britain, there was conscription. Conscription was never extended to any part of Ireland, but soldiers did, in their droves, volunteer to fight for the right of smaller nations. And those optimistic about home rule in Ireland would have felt aggrieved that the favour was not returned and Ireland didn't gain its independence. Those that signed the Ulster Covenant and wanted to show that their intention was to remain British around the time of the First World War, when Home Rule was on the table, and the Loyalists feared that Home Rule would mean Rome Rule. They signed the Ulster Covenant in the hope that the whole of Ulster would remain British, but of course Donegal, Cavan and Monaghan were partitioned away from the rest of Ulster because of the demographics, and the United Kingdom tried to retain as much of Ulster as it could with a Protestant majority, a slim Protestant majority in that new statelet that became known as Northern Ireland, which was consisting of 6 counties. And to me, cards on the table, you know my politics. I think there was a dark day in history when Ireland was partitioned. Would Home Rule have worked? It would have been a nice dream. The 1916 Easter Rising struck a blow for Irish independence with the dream of a united, secular, socialist, independent Republic of Ireland consisting of all 32 counties, as declared in the Declaration of Independence, as read by... Who read the Declaration of Independence? Patrick Pearse? I think so. But that Ireland that was declared in 1916, which emphasized the equality of every Irish man and woman. This is decades ahead of women's liberation. We've had the 100 years anniversary of women being able to vote in this country. No one mentioned Countess Markievicz around the time, who was a woman, a Protestant Irish Sinn Féin member of Parliament, the first woman elected to the so-called British Parliament. No one mentioned her name. Is it because she didn't fit the mould of what they want women's liberation to be about? I agree with what the suffragettes fought for, but don't get them started on racism. But look, 100 years ago, everyone's views were shaped by the time in which they lived in, and we can't judge people by today's modern standards. 100 years is a long time. 74 years is a long time, and as time goes by and these things get further and further away, one does wonder: are we forgetting? Are we forgetting the message? I was going to elaborate on it being 71 years. We've had Israel has been around for 71 years, but I'm gonna go into that on another show, because all the First World War and the Second World War, they kicked off they triggered so many other events, and so much of liberation that happened in the former colonies came in light of the First World War and the Second World War, Irish independence, First World War, the Israeli state being formed shortly after the Second World War. These were great triggers for other events in other parts of the world. But look, thank you very much for joining me for this Remembrance Sunday special. May you all have a peaceful Remembrance Sunday, whether you're wearing a red poppy or white poppy, or you're not wearing anything at all. This has been Lessons for Life. We'll do it all again soon. We were here, and we're gone. Laters.